Sister Iris. Sister Iris is the heart of Company 8. As a sister from the Holy Soul Temple, her main job is to perform prayers to allow infernals to pass on peacefully as they are destroyed. Iris is also able to quickly treat a bullet wound, which allows her to save lives on the battlefield. Along with that, Iris is a quick thinker under stressful situations. In Tamaki's fight with Assault, when Assault was under the spell of Tamaki's lucky Lecturer, Iris didn't hesitate to knock him unconscious with a pipe. Iris can also be clumsy and curious sometimes, but this curious nature of hers is what helped everyone during their fight with Dr. Giovanni. You see, Iris has a habit of pressing random buttons, and Vulcan found it very annoying because it self-destructed the animal robots in his house. But while fighting Dr. Giovanni, Iris pressed all the random buttons, which self-destructed all the robots. This not only threw Lisa and Giovanni off guard, but also gave Vulcan and Shinra enough time to tip the scales in their favor. Still, despite her clumsy and airheaded moments, she will often make sharp remarks on Maki's romance. Iris usually doesn't share her feelings with other people because she doesn't want to bother them with her problems, and I think that's because of her unfortunate past that had a terrible tragedy. Back when she was a kid, she and Hibana lived a happy life at the Holy Soul Temple. All was good until one day an infernal burned their orphanage to the ground. The two of them survived, but all they could do was watch their fellow sisters burn to death. Now, it is no mere coincidence that they survived. Hibana had flame resistance, as we all know, and as for Iris, it was later revealed that she also had flame resistance the whole time. Otherwise, she would have gotten cooked along with the rest of her sisters. Now, the reason she had flame resistance this whole time is because she actually had a hidden power. She was the 8th pillar, and after becoming the pillar, she goes from a wholesome nun to a certified 3rd-gen fire user. Her flame powers start off as small embers, but then she surprises everyone with a flame shield that can block basically anything. And by anything, I mean literally anything. We're talking shockwaves from Shinra's lightspeed kicks and even blasts from Dragon, who is arguably the 2nd most powerful character in the story. But what if you don't get awakened as a 3rd-generation fire user? What do you do in that situation? Well, to find out about that, we have Akitaru Obi at number 2, who is the captain of Company 8. Unlike other members of the Fire Force, Captain Obi lacks fire abilities. Yes, he was just once your normal firefighter who worked with the Fire Force to minimize the damage caused by infernals. And it's not like Obi doesn't fear death, he does, but despite lacking a fire ability and having a fear of death, Obi believes that he cannot stop because he carries the heavy burden of being the captain of Company 8. Akitaru greatly believes in justice and doesn't tolerate evildoers and corrupt people at all, which is also shown in his days as a regular firefighter. One day, while he was helping civilians during a brutal infernal outbreak, Obi noticed that a woman was begging the Fire Force to end the suffering of her husband, who became an infernal. But the Fire Force refused to help the woman because dealing with her husband would not give them enough points. This made Obi angry at the Fire Force because instead of helping the people, they gamified their job by assigning points to the infernals. There was no need for Obi to listen to this corrupted system anymore because, unlike others, Obi was not a slave of fame. He wasn't fond of points. The only thing that mattered to him was the people of his city. Instead of listening to his seniors, Obi stole the weapon from the Fire Force, and with Hinawa's help, he put the husband of the poor widow to rest. This very incident led to the creation of Company 8, because instead of being a cog in this corrupt system, Obi wanted a team that would always put people first. Just to give you an idea of how seriously Obi takes this, in Chapter 3, Obi straight up told Shinra and Arthur that he would kick them out of the company if they disrespected the feelings of the people. However, this doesn't mean that Obi is just an abilityless, courageous captain who has strong morals. No, Obi is strong. So strong that even the Benemaru called him the symbol of hysterical strength and considered him a model firefighter. To make sure he doesn't fall behind the world of fire users, Obi works out a lot. Whether it's a meeting or just Company 8 hangout, you'll mostly catch him doing pull-ups, lifting weights, or doing something like that. but you cannot survive in the world of Fire Force with just brute strength, which is why Obi has a broad fighting style. He uses different types of weapons depending on the situation, all of which are designed to pierce an Infernal's core with low difficulty, like the core annihilating pile bunker, which was created for the very purpose of dealing with Infernals. Along with that, Obi also uses a firefighting axe, which is hidden in white steam and can be thrown at the opponent. However, just because Obi has brawls doesn't mean he's lacking in the brain department. It won't be wrong to say that Obi's mind is the deadliest weapon he has, because Obi is often seen creating battle plans on the spot. To give you an example, my guy literally used train tracks as ladders in order to gain high ground, and he even used fire extinguishing foam in the most unimaginable way possible by creating a smoke screen out of it. Because of these qualities, Obi is not only respected by Company 8, but also other members of the Fire Force. Hibana, who once questioned Obi's presence within the Special Fire Force, respects Obi's sense of judgment, and in Chapter 42, while fighting Obi, the Benamaru paused mid-rage to compliment Obi's bravery to not run from a strong enemy. And you know it's the real deal when an evil criminal like Joker considers you the light of the Tokyo Empire. We've talked about the captain of Company 8, now let's move on to the lieutenant of Company 8. At number 3, we have Takehisa Hinawa, the lieutenant of Company 8. He wears a rough face that gives him such a terrifying appearance that everyone in Company 8 except Obi gets scared of him. However, despite having such a scary face, Hinawa cares a lot about his juniors and often checks in on them to make sure they're doing well. For example, when Shinra was troubled by what Joker said to him, Hinawa told Shinra that he can always rely on Obi in case Shinra doesn't want to open up to him. But Hinawa wasn't always like that. When he was in the military, he had an image of someone who's cruel and heartless. However, one night, his dear friend Tojo suddenly became an Infernal. Before completely turning into an Infernal, Tojo begged Hinawa to shoot him and to end his life painlessly. But Hinawa couldn't bring himself to take his friend's life. He couldn't pull the trigger, and before he knew it, Tojo got killed by other soldiers. This tragedy completely changed Hinawa. One day, while he was cursing himself for not pulling the trigger, Hinawa met Obi, who at the time was risking his life and his career to treat an Infernal with respect. This time, Hinawa knew what he needed to do. Following Obi, he appeared in front of the Infernal, and this time, he pulled the trigger on Tojo's old gun, killing the Infernal without any kind of hesitation. This incident later led to the formation of Company 8, because right at that moment, Obi decided that he would form his own company, where he would recruit people like Hinawa, who are willing to put human lives first in this hellish world. This was Hinawa as a person, and when it comes to fire powers, Hinawa is a unique second-generation fire user. I say unique because instead of moving flames here and there as most second-generation fire users do, Hinawa combined his abilities with his favorite weapon, guns. Hinawa's abilities allow him to control ignition and the speed of his bullets. Because of that, Hinawa not only can make the bullets slow down, but he can even make them go faster, turning them into mini rockets. Hinawa's gunshots pack so much punch that at max power, they can completely destroy the gun's barrel, which is why they had Hajime make a special barrel that could withstand Hinawa's gun power. This gets more deadly when you factor in Hinawa's trajectory control, which lets him bend bullets mid-air and bounce them off walls. It is only because of precise control and tank-like firepower that Hinawa was able to defeat White-Clad Arrow by using a shotgun as a sniper. But if we're talking about precise control over their abilities, then we can't forget Hinawa's junior. You guessed it right. Next at number 4, we have Maki. Maki is a second-generation fire user who is one of the founding members of Company 8. Before joining Company 8, Maki served in the Tokyo Army under Hinawa. Despite her father being Danro Oze, who is the general of the Tokyo Army, Maki never slacked off during her time in the army. However, in order to serve the public more directly, Maki went against her father's wishes and joined Company 8, where she became the unit leader. Because of her military upbringing, Maki is calm and tactical in the battlefield. However, off the battlefield, it's a different story. Not only is she a hopeless romantic who is always dreaming about fairy tales, but she's also very caring about her fire spirits, Sputter and Flare. She treats both like pets and makes sure to keep them away from Hinawa's eyes, because Hinawa brutally murders them when he sees Maki playing with them. Along with being a hopeless romantic, Maki is very conscious about her muscles, so conscious that even if you praise her muscles, she will think you're mocking her. And if you make the mistake of joking about her muscles, then you will face the same fate as Shinra and Arthur. But despite being a little bit goofy, Maki is one of the most powerful members of the squad. If we're only talking about pure human strength, then Maki is literally a gorilla. She can throw opponents to the ground without any problem, and thanks to her former military training, she can disarm her enemies without breaking a sweat. Along with that, Maki is also one of the best second-gen fireground users. Her control over the existing flame is so sick that she dominated a 2v1 against Shinra and Arthur. Because of this skillful control over flames, she's often considered a witch by Company 8, which, to be honest, suits her more than being a military gorilla, because after the grounder power-up, she literally became a battle mage. After Vulcan joined Company 8, he created 2 massive gauntlet-style drones for Maki. These drones, which were named Iron Owls, were powered by sputter and flare. These drones are basically Swiss Army weapons because not only can they act as shields, but they can also hit like a truck. These things even have cameras, which allow Maki to effectively scout enemies and launch sneak attacks at high speeds. Because as the Adola grew closer, Maki's abilities grew exponentially. This increase in power allowed Maki to briefly hold back a giant blast of heat energy, and it wasn't your normal blast. It had more than enough power to destroy the entire Tokyo Empire. Okay, we've talked enough about second-gen fire users, let's move on to number 5, where we have Tamaki Kotatsu, a third-gen fire user of Company 1. She was originally a sister in Company 1, but because she unknowingly helped Reika in his plans, she was sent to Company 8 as punishment. Tamaki is famous for her lucky lecher lure, which is a condition that puts Tamaki in pervy situations against her will. But don't sleep on this technique, because it was with this very technique that Tamaki defeated Assault not once, but multiple times. And even after going through harsh training, like watching sus materials and going to sus places, Assault couldn't defeat her and realized that no matter how much he trains, he cannot win against the woman he loves. Aside from lucky lecher lore, Tamaki has a unique fire ability called Nekomata, which gives her various cat-like abilities, like cat ears, 2 tails, and sharp nails on her fingertips. According to Orochi, Tamaki has more fire resistance than your average fire user. This not only increases her speed, but she also becomes able to surround her targets with flames. She can also increase the length of these tails, which can be used as an SOS signal. However, even though she's a third-gen fire user, Tamaki often felt insecure about her strength, and this insecurity only got worse when in chapter 158, Juggernaut lost his 2 limbs while defending her. She felt so pathetic that she started to doubt her decision to join the fire force. But despite such doubts, Tamaki has a strong sense of justice to protect those around her, which is why, in hopes of getting strong enough to protect her allies, Tamaki went to Asakusa to train under Benamaru. Instead of training Tamaki himself, Benamaru told her to play with Hikage and Hinata. Now this does sound very strange, and Tamaki was also confused by this. However, to her surprise, Tamaki unlocked her true potential with this method. After playing tag for a while, Tamaki's incomplete Nekomata evolved into a half-fire cat. This makes her so fast that even after evolving into a fox, Hinata and Hikage weren't able to catch her. But what if you aren't strong like Captain Obi and lack fire abilities like Tamaki and Maki? How do you survive in this world of fire? Well, you do so by becoming a mad scientist. That's how. At number 5, we have Victor Licht. Victor is not just a mad scientist, but rather he is a mad scientist who has got some big brains. Thanks to that brain power, Licht graduated at the top of his class from Imperial University of Tokyo in record time. After that, he joined Hajime Industries, where he became the head of the Applied Combustion Lab. But how did such a blessed genius end up in a mid-company like the 8th? Well, it turns out that Victor was hungry for truth. Just like Company 8, he wanted to find out everything related to fire abilities, Adola Burst, and human combustion. That is why he crawled on the floor to get a closer look at Shinra's Adola Burst. This trait of Victor makes him suspicious in front of Company 8, and Obi goes as far as to make sure Victor is on their side. However, Victor doesn't care about the sides and finds answers more importantly than any kind of morals or loyalty, which is why he was even willing to use Shinra to investigate Hajima's connection with the evangelist. Now, you might be wondering why Company 8 would put such a time bomb near them. That's because while being a crack scientist, Victor is also an incredible strategist that has saved his allies many times. But everyone can save a friend or two in his life. What's so great about that? Well, what if I told you that Victor also saved the whole Tokyo Empire? Yes, the whole Tokyo Empire. In the joint investigation arc, many of the Fire Force members turn into Infernals, and these Infernals were moving in a planned way, which is quite a strange thing for an Infernal. While everyone was confused by this strange movement, Victor was the only one to figure out the reason behind it. Turns out that Ritsu was arranging these Infernals in a conical shape to create an explosion that would cause the whole of Tokyo to collapse. But she forgot that our boys here, Victor not only figured out her plan, but also created a plan to deal with it. He used Maki's insane control over flames to move the flame to the deepest parts of the nether. Now, how did it cool down the heat of the explosion? Through the help of science. Because if you go 200 meters deep into the earth, the temperature drops down to 18 degrees Celsius. So by using the depth of the nether, Victor was able to cool down the heat of the explosion. But you don't always need a big brain or fire powers to save the day. You can do that even if you're an engineer, which is why, at number 7 we have Vulcan Joseph, the engineer of Company 8. And believe me when I say he's not a normie engineer. He's so skilled that he lives up to the title of God of the Forge and Flames. He's so damn good that he doesn't need to show his resume to companies. They come to him. He doesn't fear rejection from his employers, he rejects them. And I mean that literally, because everyone in Hajime that tried to recruit Vulcan failed very badly. But why didn't Vulcan join Hajime? I mean, there's nothing to lose because about 70% of Tokyo's businesses are under Hajime Industries. That's because, unlike other people, Vulcan hates Hajime to its very core. Why? Because Hajime stole the technology of Vulcan's ancestors. And by technology, I mean the Amaterasu. That's right, Vulcan's ancestor put a lot of time and pride and brought all to make their greatest masterpiece that powers the whole Tokyo Empire. Yes, they were the ones who made Amaterasu. Giovanni was the student of Vulcan's grandfather, and he ordered Giovanni to not go to Hajime. But Giovanni not only broke his promise to Vulcan's family by joining Hajime, but he also prevented Vulcan from getting new materials and tools. Vulcan hates Giovanni more than he hates Hajime. The reason for that is Giovanni not only broke the promise that he made to Vulcan's grandfather by joining Hajime, but Vulcan believes that he's also behind the murder of his family. Even after breaking his promise, Giovanni would often come to Vulcan's workshop to hire him for Company 3. Giovanni only did that to get his hands on a very important object that Vulcan had, the Amaterasu's key. And in order to steal that, Giovanni went as far as to place Lisa, who was family to Vulcan, as a spy. But when everything failed, Giovanni decided to just kill Vulcan, and that's where Company 8 comes in. Despite knowing it's hard to get Vulcan on their side, Captain Obi sent Shinra, Arthur, and Iris to hire Vulcan. Now, obviously, they couldn't hire Vulcan right away, but they did stand with Vulcan and protected him against Giovanni, Lisa, and other Whiteclads. This made Vulcan realize that Company 8 is different from the rest of the Fire Force, and while he lost the key to Giovanni, Vulcan didn't want to lose his family. So he joined Company 8 to help them against Hajime and the Whiteclads. Now, Vulcan didn't only join Company 8, he became bros with them and showed everyone why he's called the God of Forge and the Flames. Vulcan's engineering skills are so sick that he can create complex machines in a few moments, which is why after joining Company 8, he not only upgraded all of the existing tech of Company 8, but also made lots of new machines that help the company in all of their future missions. Whether it's making iron owls for Maki or upgrading Company 8's vehicle with different kinds of tech, Vulcan's got you. And Vulcan doesn't only make machines and is done with it. No, after making a machine, Vulcan tries his best to break it with his monstrous strength, and if it breaks, it is straight up trash. However, every cracked engineer also needs a skilled technician. which is why we have Lisa Isaribi at number 8, who, just like Vulcan, used to hate the members of Fire Force, to the point that she even smacked you for letting Shinra and the company inside Vulcan's workshop. And just like Vulcan, Lisa cared deeply for her family. Now, I know you're thinking about her betrayal, which is true, she did betray Vulcan. However, even after betraying them, she was worried about them. That is because after the kindness Vulcan showed to her, Lisa became uncertain about her place in the White Clads and even considered escaping the workshop with Vulcan. Then why didn't she do it? It's because she was brainwashed by Giovanni for years, because of which she developed a deep fear of being abandoned by Dr. Giovanni. And Vulcan knew that. He knew that his bond with his family members wasn't weak, which is why he went to the depths of Nether to save her. But Giovanni's fear made things harder for her, and even after she got saved by Vulcan and Company 8 in the Netherworld arc, Lisa would often tremble at the very thought of Giovanni. However, thanks to the kindness shown by Company 8, Lisa grew attached to them and was able to get free from Giovanni's prison. Her loyalty to Vulcan and Company 8 grew with the passage of time, to the point that she decided to fight against the Empire to rescue Obi. Not only did Lisa get free from Giovanni's brainwashing, but she also overcame her fears and fought Giovanni with the help of Vulcan's tech. Overcoming one's fears sounds great and all, but I think it's time I tell you about the knight who didn't fear anything. Yup, that's right, at number 9 we have Arthur Boyle, the Night King of Company 8, who has so much confidence in himself as a third-generation pyrokinetic that he addresses his seniors rudely. Arthur also comes off as a silent and mysterious kind of dude, which makes him popular among the girls. But little do they know that their Night King is stupid. If you want to know how stupid he is, just take a look at his fight with Setsuo. During this fight, Arthur was struggling to beat Setsuo, and it's not because Setsuo was strong or Arthur couldn't figure out his attacks. No, rather the only reason Arthur was struggling is because he was holding his sword in the wrong hand. Along with being stupid, Arthur is crazy and fantasizes a lot about being a medieval knight. Now, the reason he's like this is insanely sad. What happened was that Arthur's parents used to have a small restaurant which got burnt down. One night, Arthur's mother asked him to call his father for dinner. His father was napping in his room with a hat over his face. Curious as he was, Arthur asked his father about what's inside this hat. Arthur's father tells him to look into the hat. At first, Arthur doesn't see anything. However, after a moment, Arthur's imagination takes over his reality and he starts seeing his parents as a king and queen who own a beautiful castle. The next morning, Arthur finds a letter from his father who tells Arthur that they left on an adventure to save the world, and in their absence, Arthur is the king of their castle. This eventually led to Arthur considering himself the Night King. Now, while it might sound hilarious, Arthur's fantasies are actually a power-up for him. What I mean is that the more his surroundings are like those of a medieval knight, the stronger his third-generation fire abilities get. This is also why Arthur named his sword Excalibur. This Excalibur doesn't have a blade, but that's not a problem, because with his fire abilities, Arthur can create a blade of plasma for his Excalibur. Arthur does that by increasing the temperature of his flames to the next level, which makes his plasma sword so strong that no second-gen fire user can put it out. Because plasma is insanely hotter than normal flames, Arthur is not only good at cutting metals, but also does a good welding job. While being extremely hot, plasma has another ability. It can create electricity. Now, guess which villain uses electrical signals to control people? Yup, that's right, Homea. And that's why Arthur is a very bad match for her, since Plasma Blade interferes with Homea's electrical signals and stops her from getting into anyone's brain. And this isn't even its final form, because after Arthur broke his sword in his fight against Dragon, Vulcan made him a new Excalibur. This new Excalibur was made from the nose cone of a spaceship and could take 3,000 degrees Celsius temperature without any problem. If you're a normal knight, a sword is all you need. But Arthur is no normal knight. He is the Night King, and every Night King needs a knightly cape, which is why Arthur learned Hysterical Strength from Benimaru. Hysterical Strength is activated when one understands the pressure of death and realizes that one can lose their life. What it does is push the body beyond the normal limits and give the user a massive power boost. In the case of Arthur, this power becomes his Plasmantle cape that hangs from his shoulders. Now, this cape isn't just there for fashion or to improve Arthur's fantasy. It has bonkers defense and can easily block powerful attacks, such as Dragon's explosive fire breath. But when you're fighting a dragon, you need more more than a sword and cape. You need speed to outrun light itself, sharp reflexes to dodge its attacks, durability to fight for hours, and most of all, you need unbreakable will, the ability to never ever give up, no matter how strong your opponent is. And guess what? The Night King Arthur had it all. While being in space, he crossed the Earth and Moon in mere moments and took several of Dragon's powerful attacks head on. But even though the feats I mentioned are crazy in and of themselves, they are nothing in front of Arthur's last attack against Dragon. Arthur, despite losing half of his body, tanked Dragon's explosive breath and unleashed Violet Flash, Earth Divider, an attack that truly lived up to its name because it literally sliced the Earth in half. Even though the Night King cutting the Earth in half sounds cool and all, it is nothing in comparison to what our hero did. And to find out about that, we have Shinra Kusakabe at number 10. Like Arthur, Shinra also lived most of his childhood without his mother. And while Arthur coped about it with the power of delusion, Shinra had to live with the crime he never did. What happened was that Shinra's mother and his brother Sho died in a fire that burnt their whole house. Shinra, who had just woken up, noticed that there's a demon infernal in the fire. Shinra thought that the fire must have been caused by the demon. However, at that time, he didn't know that this demon was actually his mother. The shock of his mother's death caused Shinra to let out a nervous smile, which was so wide that it looked like the smile of a demon. This caused people to think that Shinra was the villain who killed his own family just for fun, but Shinra's tragic childhood had just started. During this incident, Shinra developed his fire abilities thanks to Sho. Yes, his little brother Sho. It turns out that Sho didn't die, but instead he awakened his Adola Burst, which influenced Shinra and triggered his third generation powers. During the incident, Sho got kidnapped by Charon and Homea, while Shinra was later sent to Hajima Industries since he couldn't control his newly found powers. The scientists at Hajima only saw Shinra as a test subject and ran countless tests on him to see if he had the Adola Burst, but unfortunately they weren't able to find anything because Shinra's Adola Burst manifested after he joined Company 8. At the age of 13, Shinra joined the Special Fire Force Training Academy. He did that to find the truth behind the fire that killed his family and to save the people from flames that once killed his family. Shinra's desire to save people also comes from his childhood. Shinra loved heroes a lot and wanted to become a hero that could save his family. After graduating from the academy, Shinra was sent to Company 8, where despite being a newcomer in the Fire Force, Shinra gave a tough time to experienced members of the force and even defeated Captain Hibana with the help of his fire ability. Shinra's fire ability allows him to control and use flames from his feet, which makes Shinra's kicks so strong that they can even cut a limb. This allows Shinra to change the path of his kicks mid-air, which enables him to land deadly kicks one after another. With his ability, Shinra can also fly in the air like a rocket and quickly change direction mid-air to catch his opponents off guard. But just like every hero, Shinra faced several roadblocks, and to overcome these roadblocks, Shinra trained under Benimaru, not once, but twice. Under Benimaru's teaching, Shinra learned rapid and hysterical strength. Because of rapid, Shinra is able to move 10 times faster than before while using less firepower. Since we're talking about speed, want to know what happens when Shinra uses rapid under Adola's Grace? He travels back in time. Let me explain. Adola's Grace enhances one's firepower because Shinra's rapid increases his speed. The Grace makes him so fast that Shinra's body splits into small subatomic particles. These particles move at the speed of light, allowing Shinra to go a few seconds back in time before his body broke apart, which then lets him to return to his original state. However, rapid without Adola's Grace is a different story. It is still strong, don't get me wrong, it was just not strong enough to defeat Charon in the 5th Pillar arc. And if Shinra isn't strong enough to defeat Charon, he should forget about being everyone's hero. But worry not, because that's where hysterical strength comes in. When hysterical strength is activated, Shinra's flames turn blue because of the high temperature and form a claw-like shape. With this new ability, Shinra was able to knock back level 1 burns with just a single kick. Now this feat may sound kinda mid, but you're forgetting that it's Leonard Burns we're talking about. If you still think it's not special, then let me tell you about the time when Shinra kicked the moon back into its orbit. And the only way to do that is by applying 16 million newtons of force for 67 7 years straight. And this monster of a task was done without using light speed. Let that sink in. Now, if this blew your mind, I wonder what the next feat will do. Because after becoming Shinra Banshoman, he became the hero. He gained control over every creation, effortlessly defeated the Evangelist's strongest form, revived the whole human race, and started the Soul Eater manga.